All right, guys. Well, we're out here. What is it, Logan? Did you say the 17th or 18th?
It's 18th, yeah.
All right. September 18th. We're down to the pretty much the final few things here. Just knocking out a bunch of punch list stuff. The whole family. We just all got back from a big elk hunt in Idaho, and then we met with the family, her mom and dad in Wyoming, and did a bunch of fly fishing, backcountry alpine fly fishing. So had a good, I don't know, I think it's 3 weeks that we were gone, so it was good to get away for a while. But now we're playing catch up, and we're on a bean plot here. This is the Hancock buck beans right here, and as you can tell, as Logan pans out across there, this plot did amazing. I think it's right at 3 acres here. I mean, there's a lot of these beans that are waist high, if not more. A lot of pods, surprisingly. As a matter of fact, if you just want to pan over here, Logan, you can see some of the ends are all eaten off from the deer. But the one thing that we're struggling with this year, I mean, you can tell by the cracks in the soil down here, probably the driest year that our area has seen. We had just enough timely rains. I mean, I don't know, we might have had in the last 2 months in this exact area maybe 2 inches of rain total. But the problem is we're suffering from like I think a 3, maybe even 4 year drought. So our water table is just so low that it's so hard for this soil to retain any moisture at all, no matter how much moisture you get. But somehow these beans did amazing. We were blessed with some pretty timely rains. So my only issue is right now we're kind of dealing with the pods they're right at that critical stage, and in fact they may be a little past the point of getting water and for them to actually seed out. You can feel there's some seeds in the pods, but not real big yet. And us being here towards the middle, almost crowding the end of September, I doubt they're going to do a whole lot. But the deer have been slamming the tops. They've been slamming the stems or the leaves and the stems quite a bit, especially on this backside up against this hedgerow. So what our plan is, we're going to go in here, and it's brutal work. It's not fun. It's not easy. Especially on 3 acres, but I'm going to take a bag broadcaster, hand spreader, and in fact we just had to pick that up today, our other one broke. And Hancock sent us a bunch of wheat. You can do this with either wheat, like Egyptian wheat, or rye, a cereal rye. Broadcast right into these beans, and the idea is you get up that carbon content whenever, well, basically if you start from the very start, you'll have in the fall, late fall and through the winter, you'll have a green source even in all these pods, if the pods do end up doing well. And if they don't, you know, we save this food plot with the wheat. So the main thing is just keeping food in here. We basically transform this whole 80 acres into pretty much trying to make it into nothing but deer habitat, and a little bit of cash crop as far as hay goes. So that's kind of the idea. And then as the wheat gets up and right as it heads out later on in the late spring, before it goes to hard seed and it's still in the doughy stage, we'll go in and either cut it or we'll just crimp it. The only issue with wheat can take a lot of browse pressure, so sometimes to terminate the crop, sometimes it takes more than just crimping it. So we may have to actually spray it, and then we'll go in right before right after we spray it, and as it kills out, and we may not even have to do that, we'll go in and plant our next rotation of beans. What I'd like to do is just keep beans in this area, just a constant rotation of beans and wheat, or beans and cereal rye, however the growing season works for us. But anyway, one thing Logan did do, what was that, a month ago?
Yeah, about.
Logan came in here, I think with my dad, and you can see some of this ragweed. It's pretty tall ragweed that's kind of sporadic out through here, and hopefully that wind's not too bad, but a lot of ragweed in here. This is basically a repurposed overgrazed cattle pasture, so a lot of weeds, but we kind of knew we'd be dealing with that being the first year that anything's been put in here. And guys, this was strictly done with, I think we cut it, we bush hogged this area, we sprayed, and if I remember right, I don't think we even we barely did anything with the soil. We might have just run a disc real lightly over it, and we broadcast all these beans in here. We seeded pretty heavily, but it just goes to show, I mean, no-till drill is definitely the ideal situation, but you can get away with and get a really good plot, even in drought years, doing it with this system. So it's kind of the main focus behind all this, was just to prove that you don't have to have crazy high-tech equipment. It's nice, don't get me wrong, it's definitely nice. But you can put in pretty large food plots with literally just a broadcaster and a little bit of sweat equity. So we're going to get in here, and I'm just going to kind of ignore all this ragweed that's kind of sporadic through here, and we'll just broadcast all this wheat, and that's the goal. There's the first of it. And I will say we're like forecasted for like a week solid of rain, which is, we haven't seen that in like 7-8 months. So that's pretty awesome, and it sounds like it definitely is coming. So that's the main goal behind all this, and we have a bunch of other stuff that we were prepping to for fall, or actually winter plots. So we'll get this done, and then we'll go crank out those as well. Well, so we got the beans done. This is the plot we call the south plot. This is actually, you see all this dead duff here. This was actually all cereal rye. And to be honest, we never even sprayed this one time until just a while ago. We barely roughed it up, and then Logan came in and sprayed a glyphosate mix on it, just because there's a little bit of green starting to pop up. But we've been so dry this year that there was very little spraying that needed to be done, so that was nice. Yeah, it ought to act as a pretty good weed barrier. There's a real thick thatch there. My dad's spreading the wheat, and then we will put peas. I think we're putting Blaze winter peas in here. We had some left over, and this is just a small plot. I think it might be a half acre. I don't even know if it's that. Maybe more like a 1/4 acre. But this is just a crazy travel route for deer. We get a lot of deer that utilize and stop through on their way to the big ag fields further to the west, and they just use this hedgerow like crazy right here. So I've yet to kill a big buck out of here, but this year might be the one. It's one of those stands. We have a stand right up here in one of these trees that you can hunt on anything north wind. And if you put enough time in it, I guarantee you can kill a good deer. But anyway. This is Hancock Killer Clover Mix. And this is probably by far one of our I'm telling you, it just works wonders for us anyway. Killed a lot of deer over Killer Clover, and actually that's what this whole entire plot used to be and was up till last year. We actually expanded it last year and took it back behind the tractor here. Actually back in that far hedge tree back in the corner over there, about 100 yards, 120 yards is where I shot socks last year. And it was all clover last year, and this, it just got burned out because of our crazy summer that we had, and a lot of triple digits in the Midwest, and clover does not typically do real well. We actually have a little bit of clover back behind us here, but this side just fried. And honestly, it did really well for us. I think how long did this thing last? 7 years? I think it was 7 years that this plot was in. And we just maintained it. Once in a while in the early spring, late winter, like February and March, we had frost seed just to keep it up and keep the thick clover coming back. And we would mow it twice a year typically. Sometimes, depending on the weather, we'd even mow it 3 and 4 times a year. And that just helped with the weed and grass content. So to kind of rescue this plot, and since it is September, what we're going to do, my dad already spread wheat out here, and not a real heavy rate, but he put some in here, and that'll basically act as a filler and just be that immediate green up to get the deer using this again, because it's just been completely barren this whole summer. And then, you know, as we've got probably another month and a half of growing conditions for clover, and before we start tipping off pretty cold in temperatures. And so this clover should green up by then. There's a little bit of alfalfa in there as well, and then this will just carry over through the winter and green up real good in the spring. And we'll probably even do another frost seed over the top of this in the spring. So anyway, we're gonna get this spread out here, and I think this plot's like 2 acres now, right about that. And been a lot of good deer killed off this plot, so pretty good one.